Hello, friends and enemies, heroes and villains. Welcome to Epic Realms. Today's guest is an award nominated game designer and writer. They have worked for Paizo, Green Ronin, Call of Cthulhu, Fallout, and so many more products. Please welcome Alison Cybe to Epic Realms. How are you doing?
Hi there.
So,
I'm doing
go ahead.
doing good, thank you.
Where did you get your interest in gaming? Because you've done a lot of stuff, and your list of companies you've worked for and products you've worked for is pretty huge. Not to mention your writing and your books and short stories.
I've been playing tabletop roleplay games since I was 12. That was a long time ago. So it's a hobby and kind of community that I've known for a long time. And has just kind of been something that I always wanted to get into when I was younger, and then after graduating university and working for a while, I thought, why not go into something that I particularly enjoy?
Yeah. What was kind of your first introduction to RPGs early on? Was it a
Um,
specific game or a person that got you into it?
yeah, first introduction was there was a toy shop in Glasgow where I grew up. Long since gone now. I've checked on like Google Maps, and it's a car dealership these
Oh
days.
no.
I think. But said toy shop, it was like a in one of those big old converted industrial warehouses, and they had like a little section over to one side where they stocked pretty much a whole load of second edition D&D and like other British like role play games, games like Hero Quest, and just kind of group them all in together in like a similar kind of section. And I remember looking at them, and this was like TSR second edition D&D, and I don't know, like depending on the age of people listening there, you'll either know the type of covers that they had or not. But oh God, those were terrifying covers. When you're like 9, 10 years old, that's a terrifying selection of faces and creatures to be staring at you. And yeah, I just kind of thought, wow, that looks absolutely terrifying and so cool. I would love to like know more about what that is. Um, and eventually just kind of branched off into finding out as much about it as I could.
Nice. What did you buy it like just off the shelf, or were you like you came back a few days later and you were like, I want that. I want to see what it's all about. Because did you have a lot of people they get the book not knowing, and then they're like, oh, it's a game.
Oh yeah, well, the first like this was about the time when TSR was doing the big push into getting the games into toy shops.
Right.
So they had their starter sets kind of in big old board game boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of those boxes that they had that I seem to remember I got it for Christmas. No, actually, no. I think I convinced my parents to pick it up from a car boot sale that was going on around the same time. But in either case, I remember my mum at that point saying, I'm surprised you're not really into this. Um, and I was like, well, I don't know what it is. I
Right.
probably will be as soon as I get a chance to. Yeah, absolutely. Uh, um. But yeah, just kind of from there. And I still remember the adventure that it was. It was the big black box with a large terrifying red dragon on it. And it came with like a pre-built adventure where you're trying to escape from a evil wizard's prison or something. and really lovely way on how it mechanically introduced the players into the game, where you pick up like a selection of A4 cards, and each one introduces a new mechanic, and you play through it, incorporating the mechanics into it as you go. So the method of teaching and incorporating player interaction into it kind of led me into thinking of player participation and game design, even when I was just learning how to play it.
That's great. That's really cool. A lot of places I notice are starting to get back into that make it easy to
Yeah.
learn sort of scenario, adding little things in there to go, here's how you learn real simply and real easily. So it's kind of cool to realize that they did that back then because I came in at second edition as well, but we didn't have that. We just were like, here's the book, figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah, there is that just a huge advantage to learn to play as you play.
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned, going to school and realizing this is the industry that I wanted to kind of get into. Did role playing play a factor as far as like going to school or any of that? Did it get in the way of school, or was it definitely like, here's my goal, that's where I'm headed?
No, never really got in the way. During like secondary school, that'd be like American version of high school. But I never really had the chance to play or like explored it or anything. This was like in a time before you would have school like clubs for D&D or anything.
Right.
So never really got into it until I got into like college, university, and so on. So it was around about that point you got into education, which had like clubs and societies and so forth. Um, Choice of education, I studied film and media because it's again a different style, something I was interested in. And I actually chose film and media because it's what's typically considered an interdisciplinary field. You study film, you're actually studying subjects correlating and connected to film. So you're studying history, you're studying geography, you're studying creative writing, you're studying media, psychology, and just a large variety of different subjects. And that's kind of what I wanted to go into because that it kind of gave me a good all-round kind of basis on what I could look into, and I found that I enjoyed writing, I enjoyed analyzing writing. Um, I could probably like write several essays about the lighting or the editing in a film. But a lot of that is just kind of breaking down things that are presented for you and like reflected on a screen. But I found that what I wanted to do was apply that into creating like something that would be interactive and which people could play with and become involved with. Um, this was before the days when you would have podcasts and actual plays especially.
Right.
I think actual plays have very much changed how audiences look at role-playing
For
games.
sure.
Um, it is games in general, whether they're tabletop roleplay games, video games, miniature games, card games, whatever they are, they're an interactive, participatory medium. And you've kind of seen more of a breakdown in the division between participatory medium and passive medium, what you would typically have seen with film, a subject where you could sit back and watch and be told a story, and you absorb that story and
Right.
become part of the audience for that. So the fields, in which we're working in has changed so much just since I finished education.
Right.
Which again, because I studied, in fields that are analytical by nature, I just find, kind of interesting, kind of fascinating to look at. Um, so I can probably talk to you about that for like 5, 10 minutes, but I don't want to
Well,
wear your
and
ears out there. You get the
my
idea.
follow-up question to that is obviously you're going for media, right? When
Mm,
you're going to school, and then like I'm gonna go, I don't want to do that so much. We're gonna go to RPGs, but then RPGs slowly shifts into media. Like you
hmm
said, there's the actual play shows and all that. So now you're kind of like you have to look at it now a little bit
mm.
because you're in an industry where that is a major kind of selling point for a lot of RPGs.
Well, I mean, even at the time, there was consideration of whether games and game design and adventures constituted an art form,
Mm-hmm.
um, which I've always thought that, was very much the case.
Yeah.
Um, and of course, you have that connection where your education is in film, media art, art criticism, critique, analysis, design, game design, and so on.
it's 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 it's
Kind of very
mind-blowing when you really
connected.
think about how much in-depth RPGs really can be when you
Yeah.
break it down like that.
Mm.
What was kind of your foot in the door when it came to getting into the RPG world? Did you have like a major foot in the door, or was it just a really slow creep by doing little things here and there?
Never had a major foot in the door. I got involved in the community, which kind of branched off into becoming more and more involved in the UK community. UK has its own kind of gaming scene. Got to know a few people who work on games, and from them networking. So slowly, kind of building up a group of people who I know that are also game designers, and just kind of gradually moving out to introduce myself to people here and there was, you know, that kind of route is the route that I kind of went down.
Yeah. Do you find yourself
Yeah.
more of an introvert or an extrovert when it comes to doing that to networking? Is it more
Uh,
difficult for you to network, or is it pretty easy?
I'm absolutely introverted. I won't lie about that, and not just with networking. I like to work with people that I already know. Um, I'm kind of used to, putting myself out there is kind of like saying, "Hi, I'm so and so. If you ever want, me to write for anything, just let me know." And then you never hear back from them.
Yeah.
Um, and you're just like, yeah, that's so very strongly like working with people who I already know and have built up a good rapport and relationship with. And that does take time, but you find that inevitably you wind up doing that.
Yeah. What would you say now that you've been doing it for a little while now? What do you think is your strong suit when it comes to RPGs and your work on RPGs? Do you think there's like mechanics or story or adventures, creatures, concepts? Where do you think your strong point is for putting that stuff together in an RPG amongst all the different, because you've worked with so many different groups and done so many different
Mm.
things.
I'm very narratively minded. I like creating adventures, stories, because those are things that the players, people sitting around the table, GMs as well, because they're playing too, can interact with and become involved with. And because I've got a fair grounding in media and academia and studies, I there are subjects that I like to tackle and discuss through the medium of games. And that's something that folks at Paizo with Pathfinder and Starfinder that I've written adventures for have actually been really good at, because they know that they can come to me for adventures about particular themes and subjects. And you will have a group of people who will play an adventure and love that an adventure has themes and subjects. And you will also have like another completely separate audience who will just absolutely hate that.
Yeah.
But when you're writing and creating something, if you can make well, when I make an adventure, if it's discussing a subject such as they come to me and be like, this one is about refugees and the struggle that they might face acclimatizing into a society which is offering to adopt them or this is an adventure about difference between um active resistance and insurrectionism and so on. One of the pieces I worked on for Starfinder, in fact, the last one I did for Starfinder, and this was going back about I don't know if it was a year and a half or 2 years ago, but was just entirely based around your characters being asked to intercede to prevent political genocide of the people, and a lot of this is heavy subjects,
Yeah.
and they will come to me and say, this one's fairly heavy. Would you like to do this one? And the last one that I've written for them is literally just a dungeon with lots of puzzles, and it's a lot of fun, and it's completely different. And I'm like, okay. So I'll do a dungeon with a whole load of puzzles, and nice little thing with that is that I've not given any of the puzzles like a set one way to solve them. A lot of them are just like, here's a puzzle with a few like twists and challenges. See what the players come up against. I like doing that because it gives me a nice little bit of variety there, which I particularly enjoy.
Nice.
Um, yeah. Uh, your question was if I like story and narrative. Yeah, I definitely think in terms of narrative structures.
Okay.
Um, Mostly because those are good ways for players to interact with and become involved in what they're participating in.
Yeah.
Um, so.
Creates an in-depth experience for all of them.
I
When
think so. I mean, if your players leave the table and they're saying, "I remember interacting with this NPC," or "I remember this scene in particular," or "this challenge we had to overcome," that's something that is worthwhile.
yeah. Well, and there's different players like you said earlier, some players like certain things over other certain things. So
Mm,
it's really nice to be able to have that. I can do this in-depth story, but I can also just do this puzzle dungeon as well. So it's nice for players because then there are definitely adventures that I've played where I'm like, I remember that one over this other one. It doesn't mean the other one was bad. It just wasn't necessarily for me.
mhm.
So I love that. When you're working for these RPGs, what is kind of the major difference? Because you've worked for, like you said, Paizo. You've done Paizo Adventures, Starfinder, Pathfinder Adventures, but you've also done third party products for like fifth edition, but it's not for WotC. It's, other companies doing third party projects. What is kind of the difference, the major differences you see in producing and creating those?
Um, Not really that many. Not really that many,
Okay.
because everyone that you're working for, especially when I'm working freelance, everyone that I'm working for, are people who I will go and work with because I want to work with them or they want to work with me. And there is enthusiasm for what we're creating. That's the biggest thing.
Okay.
Sometimes some of the licenses that we're working with might be different. Some of the like structures that we have in place might be a little bit different. Like one of them's might be more working with a business, while another's like a loose associate of people. But the main thing is always that we're all very enthusiastic about what we're doing. Um, and that's the main thing. Like when I work with making something for Star Trek Adventures,
Yeah.
everyone who is working on that are really, really into Star Trek. And that's as it should be. But it's the main, the main thing that you have that enthusiasm. Um, you're working with people who are making a product because they want to make it, and it is cool, and it's something that they want to do.
What is kind of the difference? Because again, working for these, a lot of them have now what a lot of people call organized play, whether it's Pathfinder Society or D&D Adventure League. But you've also written, adventures that aren't part of organized play. Is there a big difference when putting those adventures together, whether it be the timing or how long it is, or what kind of context goes into it? Is there a difference between an organized play adventure and a non-organized play adventure?
Not really, no, no. In terms of timing, you want to always remember that most players kind of will tap out between 4 to 5 hours. That is most people's kind of comfort limit in being around a table playing a game. Um, so aside from that, you tend to want to go for a kind of conventional narrative structure, which works with the established acts that you would typically get in a film, TV show, that kind of thing. Um, and aside from that, there's not really much in the way of difference. If something's like an organized play system, you might have elements from previous adventures that follow in or lead off to another one. So you might not immediately see resolution to that in this particular, like in the adventure that you're writing. Um, and generally, if you're doing a standalone piece, that's something that you'd want to avoid unless it's like an adventure that you're creating as part of a collection of adventures.
Yeah.
Um, But no, not really much in the way of any real difference between them. Um, you're structurally creating the same uh, type of format at the end of the day.
How do they know that, hey, this game generally can take place within a 4 hour structure, as opposed to, well, if you're a good GM, maybe you can get 4 hours out of it, but they're gonna have to cut corners. Like, how do you guys structurally put that together to make sure that it can fit within the time constraints of an organized play?
That's always a good challenge. How many scenes do you have, and how long does it take for a player to get into a scene? Um, and that's that's something that there's not really any easy answer for until you like try it out, play test it a few times. Is this adventure going to run long? Is this adventure going to run short? If you have like enough structure to it, then generally you'll have a good idea as to what you're working with. Um, And a lot of the other times you just want to feel your way around it, make sure that if you've got what you need in the adventure, then you're either going to have a 4 or 5 hour adventure, or you're going to have like one that you'll need to split over a couple of evenings.
Mm-hmm.
And don't be afraid of doing that. There's nothing wrong with having one that you need to split over a couple of evenings. Um, if your adventure runs short, then it's a shorter adventure. Just be proud with what you're creating.
Yeah.
Be confident with it.
How much playtime do you get? Like, do you do some of the play testing at all to see how long things are going to work, or if mechanics work right, or if the feel of the pacing of a story feels right, or is it just like you do your part and pass it on, and somebody else does the play testing and they come back to you?
I do pretty much most of the playtesting whenever I can, as long as I get like what do you call it? I cannot remember the name. Little release forms for the players
Okay.
so that we can do NDAs
Yeah,
and
the
so
NDAs.
on. I'm generally happy to run a quick play test of it. Um, those are pretty useful. I would say sometimes they are. Um, sometimes it can be more useful to know exactly what you're playtesting for,
Right.
and then bring that into consideration. Like, if you're playtesting for mechanics, it's a very different approach you'll want to take over if you're playtesting for narrative or structural issues. Um, and a lot of playtesting you can expedite by just reading over the adventures that you've written multiple times.
Yeah.
Um, because you will every now and then catch a few adventures which have been written, have been published, have made it into the into final book, and you kind of wind up reading it over and just going, they didn't actually read this before printing it. Not so much nowadays, but like back in the day, you would often find
Yeah.
certain adventures which have that vibe to it.
Right.
But that's fine, it's industry change, and we all kind of want to be creating the best products that we can now.
Yeah. How much playtime when you're doing those playtimes, the stuff, how much of it feels like, hey, this is work, and how much of is it just like I'm getting to play and enjoy it?
I don't know. That's a hard question.
Does it ever feel like
I
work to you when you're doing playtesting, or even just if you're gaming in general, not for work, not playtesting, does it feel like work?
Yeah, it can do. It can do. That's the biggest issue I've found with getting into it as a as a career that you kind of I have wound up quite often approaching even just going to a convention ostensibly to enjoy myself, and have kind of inadvertently, whether I wanted to or not, slipped into just the feel of it being a work holiday or a work trip, or like a product that I should really be enjoying making, feeling more like work.
Yeah.
Um, and that is something which I've heard a lot of people say when they do, turn their hobby into a business. That is a challenge, and sometimes you need to step back and remember why you got into something in the first place.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Have you
burnout is
developed any
a
tactics going into that, going like, I'm going to go into this enjoying it, I'm not going to think about work, I'm not going to do
yeah.
that? Or are you still developing that way to work into that and to get back to enjoying it when it's not
Mm.
work?
I think we all do that. I hope we all do that. I don't know. Maybe it's just me struggling to, but no, I think we all have that struggle, that challenge there.
Okay.
Um, yeah,
So
try and step back out of it every now and then. Occasionally take a break. Remember that you're here to enjoy it,
yeah,
and just try and not let it dominate too much of your daily bandwidth, that kind of thing.
right.
Um, yeah.
It's all a game and it's all for us to have fun in. So, and
Mhm.
you also, I'm assuming, realize that you're creating products that other people are enjoying and happy about. So that's got to be some sort of also bonus in that as well, to know, to sit there and like go to a convention and get, hey, I built that adventure that they're running right there, and they're all smiling and having a good time. So that's got to be a good feeling as well, to know that people out there are consuming your product and your work and enjoying themselves.
Well, we can hope so. I do hope so.
So you've worked for a lot of different companies, a lot of different titles. We've mentioned a few of them, but a lot of them are like across multimedia. You mentioned Star Trek. You've done that. Fallout, Dishonored, really popular video game. Stargate, Cyberpunk. You've worked on all of these different like I don't want to say tie-in RPGs, but they are kind of like multifaceted in different medias. How is it working for those versus working for something that's just like a standard, like a Paizo, or something that's like we're an RPG and we just do RPGs? All of our stuff is RPG based, but you're getting stuff like here's Star Trek, which is a movie and TV franchise. Here's Fallout, which is a video game and now a TV series franchise, or Dishonored video games, Stargate, TV and movie. What's it like doing RPGs for these franchises? Obviously, Cyberpunk was an RPG first, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, some of those can be really different. A lot of them differ from license to license. Modifius handles most of the licenses that you've mentioned, um, and there's not really as much difference because Modifius tends to be really good at keeping things in-house and streamlining for their design groups and people. So we don't feel that working with one Modifius game is that different from working with another one. They're really good for that. It keeps things nice and easy. I can hop from say Star Trek Adventures to Dreams of Machines and so on. Um, some of them will require a little bit more time due to working with licensing. That's generally something that would be broadly the case across the industry. Some licenses may require an NDA. Some of them may be you know may be fairly temporary. A company may not hold the license for them forever. Vis-a-vis Stargate. Others fairly uh, fairly confident with what you're dealing with. You're creating a known product. Um, the company you're working for, if it's a company like Paizo or Onyx Path, they know what they're looking for, so they can always give you very firm like advice or guidance for what type of material they're looking for as well. Um, but tone and style you know tend to be quite um you know oh, I've lost the plot here.
That's all
I've
right.
always lost the
That's all right.
plot. I
Well, let me
don't
move
think
on a little bit from that, just a little bit.
yeah,
How
don't
many
think I
of
had the
those
plot to
were
start
you a
with.
fan of before you got into them? And how many were you afterwards like, I kind of wanted, you go and check it out and research and like, this is actually a really cool product. Were you a fan of all of them going in beforehand, or was it more of an afterwards for some of them?
Is this specifically for licensed ones, you mean?
Yeah, yeah. For the licensed, the specialty IPs, the Star Treks, the Fallouts, the Dishonored, Stargate, all of that kind of stuff.
For those ones, I wouldn't put myself forward for writing for one unless I was confident that I liked the license and the universe that it was set in.
Okay.
So I wouldn't have written for them if I wasn't into it specifically because I wouldn't have put myself, forward for it in the first place. Um, if I like if I did, I wouldn't feel confident that I could get the tone or the universe or the like style that was appropriate for the world. And that's not to say that no one else should do it. Like by all means, if people are approached to write for one that they're not too familiar with,
Yeah.
then don't turn it down just because you're not certain on it. There's always space to learn and do. I'm just purely speaking for myself here. I've turned down products that I didn't think I would be the best fit for.
Right.
Um, and that's something that you can, if you're writing for it, you can do. Your main objective is always going to be having the people who are the best fit for what your what the product should be, whether you're working on it or not. So yeah,
Do you go in
always
and
been
do
um, always been very into Star Trek.
Do you go in and be like, I'm going to do some stuff for Dishonored? We'll say we'll just pick one out of there. I'm gonna write for the Dishonored RPG. Do you then go home and be like, I'm gonna play through the first game real quick and get a re understanding for the game before you get into writing, or is it just like immediately there in your mind what you want to do?
I if I've played through the game for Dishonored or Fallout, I tend to remember the game well enough to be able to pick it up. I've got a fairly good memory for that. Sometimes I might need to play it again to refresh. I've still not got all the way through the second Dishonored one, for instance. I actually should probably play that at some point. I'm playing Final Fantasy 16 at the moment, so I'm fairly sure, like everyone else, the moment that Steam came out, I just started to accumulate a massive backlog of games that I'm never going to see the end of.
Right?
So let's not worry about replaying any games. Um,
How much input do you get when they say, hey, just write us a blurb about something or write something, we don't care what, or are they like very specific about this is what we want you to write and this is how we want you to write it, and are you handcuffed or are you kind of loose on that, or does it depend on
uh,
the product?
Depends on the product, depends on the game line. I found with Modifius, who do a lot of the licensed ones that you've mentioned, they will say, send us a pitch of a couple of adventures that you'd like to do, and they will like pick one of those. So that means I get a good amount of like a variety of options, and it means that I'm writing an adventure that I want to tell, which is always super cool. If I'm writing one for Paizo, they will say we have an adventure. It's about here's a few short lines about it. If you're up for this, we can send you like a full spec for what we're looking for, and you can tell us what you think about that. And I'll like go back to them and say, "Yep, this sounds really cool. I like that. Could I change like maybe this little piece for it?" There's a lot of uh, variety with that as well. Every company's different, really.
That's great. I finally recently we talked about some of these. I finally got to sit down and do some of the Fallout RPG, get to learn the mechanics, the system,
Mm,
how it works. And I was very impressed by how I could sit there and play an RPG, but also feel like I was playing the video game. It
yeah.
had a lot of little nuances that tied in into the video game. How much work did you have on that system? Because I know you're listed as one of the five writers on there. How much work did you work on there? What kind of stuff did they have you do for that game?
Did you read the Games Master chapter?
I paged through some of it. I didn't read the whole thing. I'm a very
Yeah.
much a sit down and I have to play to learn the game before I can read the book sort of person. And so I
Yeah,
finally got my
I,
sit down, and since then I've been going through and reading the book now. So yes,
yeah, I wrote that.
okay,
Um, Pretty much for going into that, one of the vibes that I wanted to kind of cover was the idea that people would be picking up the role play game who hadn't played a role play game before.
yeah,
So I wanted to have the chapter like tell them like this is how you structure a quest. And I structured the explanation of how to do so as if you weren't making a quest for a tabletop roleplay game, you were making it for the Dishonored video game. Like your character in the game picks up a quest and goes and does like said mission or so on.
right,
So for the Fallout TTRPG, literally just adapting how quest structures and designs are put across in the game into how you're doing it with with players and as a GM, so that you know how to not just create content for a play group, but you are vis-a-vis creating the adventure with the source material in mind, kind of baked in, as it were.
yeah. And there's a whole team of writers, not just on this, but on a lot of books. How do you guys as a team work together? Because a lot of times you'll get an RPG and you'll look and be like, this is obviously written by someone that wasn't this person. But sometimes you read through and you're like, this all seems like one writer, but five, six people are credited. How do you see the teams working together and that communication working to put together a product like that?
I generally don't
Okay.
because I'm one of the writers. I know that my voice or stone or my voice or style or tone might not be the same as another writer, but we all write different chapters generally. So when a game feels cohesive like that, I have no idea how that comes out. Uh, so if I'm say doing something for Star Trek Lower Decks, I wrote an adventure for that one. Um, and I think probably it's going to be because we're working on the same source material.
Okay.
The styles and voices kind of mix in well, they kind of echo the product very well, and that's probably why that's the case. Um, Aside from that, I'm going to guess it's just good luck. It seems to be half the time. Um, if you were to go through, I contributed a couple of short. The Werewolf the Apocalypse
Hmm.
had its last book for this 20th anniversary ones. Little collection of fiction pieces called the Apocalyptic Record. Came out about 8, 10 months before their fifth edition came out. Before what are the names? Paradox released that. So I don't even know if anyone remembers Apocalyptic Record, but when um, when that came out, we had a bunch of writers from across all 20, coming up to about 30 years for the original World of Darkness ones. We had Ethan and Bill and myself and just a bunch of people who all had contributed to across all of those years, creating short stories, and just putting them all into this book and creating whole chapters. And we all have very different writing styles for creating fiction. So you could, if you know a writer's uh, style or voice, pick out which piece was written by which writer. Um, and I would say that that was a product which had in its very core, in its very essence, the idea of it being a collection of different disparate voices relating different stories. So that worked very well for that. If we were all creating like a product with it's one single voice, I don't know that would have worked as well. But nevertheless, somehow the companies I work for seem to be able to pull it off.
That's awesome.
I don't know. It's a bit of a mystery to me.
So you also do writing stories, talking a little bit about that. What do you think is the big difference between writing, say, an RPG adventure or a story, and then going and writing for a novel or a short story or like just straight fiction work that's not part of an RPG? Is there a big
Um,
difference for you?
yeah, fiction work, writing for novels is a passive medium. That's going back to what I mentioned uh, for for film and media. And when I say a passive medium, I should clarify. It is a medium where if you're watching a film or reading a book, you as the audience are an audience. You are passively sitting back and absorbing the story. You're absorbing the film. You are not participating yourself unless it's a choose your own adventure type
Yeah.
book. You are not a character in the story. That's the big difference between games and books. And of course, just mentioned choose your own adventure type game books. They kind of cross and straddle that boundary there. Um, but recognizing different aspects of how you as a writer incorporate the positions that the audiences will be in is that's really the main difference between if a piece is going to be passive or if it's going to be interactive. Um, so if you are creating a passive medium book like a novel, you are wanting to draw the audience in. Whereas if you're creating something which is intended to be interactive, you're wanting to give the player options. How you're approaching it is fundamentally different in what you're wanting to offer to the people who are reading it. And as long as you're focusing on that, you won't go too far go too far wrong, really.
Taking that one step further, what is kind of the difference then when you're going from saying writing fantasy to horror? Because the pattern, the feel, the pacing of them shift based on the genre as well. For you, how do you see that shift and the differences between writing for those mediums?
Um, Not a whole lot because it's mostly a stylistic thing. Pacing, tone, and structure are easy enough to adapt. If you can write one genre piece, you should conceivably be able to be confident enough in your writing to be able to handle any other genre piece. If you know the genre that you're writing for, you know, challenge yourself to write in another genre as well and see how you feel about it. It's something which is what I like to think of as an what's the word I'm looking for? I know the word. Relevant skill.
Okay.
You have the relevant skills. And I know this word. It's a word that employers look for. Um, if you're not the um,
I'm not sure. I wish I could
whatever the
help you
word
out,
is.
give you
Yeah,
my brain power to help, but I'm not sure.
I don't know. Maybe someone in the audience would know. Relatable skills, maybe. Yes, you if you have the relatable skills, then you can use them. There is, after all, a reason why bookstores group fantasy and science fiction together. They are related and relevant. From one genre to another. And I've noticed like a lot of bookstores have started to group sci-fi, fantasy, and horror together as well into like one section all on its own. Um, so conceivably, if you can write one, you should know how to structure a chapter. You should know how to introduce tension and action and ensure that pacing can carry that through. The rest of it is just knowing the world that you're creating a piece in. Um, so, for instance, the works that I'm making at the moment, I'm working on a short series of novels, which are fantasy comedy pieces. We can touch on those at some point if you'd like, but fantasy and comedy has the same rhythmic style that you'll often get in science fiction or in horror. The building of tension, action, suspense, release that kind of things that I'm fairly sure they teach you in creative writing. If anyone's had any creative writing courses, please tell me that they teach you this. Please let me know that they teach you this.
I
But
wanted to get to this
if they're
other.
not teaching people this, then they really should be.
Yeah, hopefully they are. I think it depends on where their schooling is taking place too, and what they're doing. Hopefully, though, yeah, hopefully they're teaching that. there's something I asked you about when we get it started, and I really wanted to bring it up because it's important to me. It's important to a lot of my close friends, and that is talking about your work, incorporating inclusivity and diversity into not only your books but your games and representing those things. Would you tell us about that? Talk about that. Some of the works you've done as well.
Um, I mean, there's not much that I can say other than that it's something that I do and most companies like to do. And not doing it is kind of a statement that people like some companies have chosen to make purely to be visually not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you don't include diversity for for any other reason than to show the world that you're, writing in. If you will, like, unfortunately, over the next few years, see a whole lot less of that, I fear. Not specifically in TTRPGs as a medium, but societally through media, through television, through film. I strongly suspect that you're going to start seeing a lot less of that for very political reasons, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Um, and it means that the worlds that we are used to seeing in our media is going to suffer for it. We're going to see things becoming a whole lot more narrow and and a whole lot less colorful and dynamic. And this is probably not a good thing. I mean, it's not a good thing at all.
No.
But I strongly suspect those are the ways that certain political powers are going to be pushing things. Um, so if you are getting into writing for games and game design, these looking at where things are going is probably going to be one of the things that you will want on the forefront of your awareness, and remembering to include what others won't or what others will be pushing against. Um, I don't want to go too
That's
far
that's understandable.
into that,
I
but
just wanted to make sure that that
yeah,
voice had a chance of being heard, and um,
and it
you,
should do. It should be heard. Everyone has a right to a place in the world of whatever you're creating, whether it's a game or if you're writing a book or anything like that. You don't want when you're creating something to create a monoculture. Um, and every piece of science fiction, every piece of fantasy, every piece of fictional writing, um, speculative writing, I should say, um, incorporates a range of diversity, even going back into history. Um, and that might have been at some points narrower than it has been in the more recent times. But the fact that it's always been present um, and very rarely had the kind of challenge to it that we're seeing now.
yeah.
So I don't know. Unfortunately, it kind of has been forced into a position where we're having to confront how we approach it a whole lot more, um, which is a bit sad.
Well,
But
hopefully,
it also
hopefully we
means
can only
that,
improve in the future and move forward and do better.
well, I mean it kind of means that we're going to have to fight a whole lot harder for it now. So we gotta be ready to do that.
That's right. Amen to that. Tell us a little bit about your podcast. What is your podcast? What does it represent? What is it that you're doing with that podcast? And what
I
tell
have
the
a
audience what it's
podcast.
called.
have a podcast?
from Firetop Mountain.
Oh, wow, that was a few years back.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about it. I thought that that was kind of a cool little thing you guys did.
That was a few years back. Me and Stuart Lloyd, who is a game book writer, would we had a little podcast where we would pick a couple of the old fighting fantasy books. For those in the United States, those were British choose your own adventure books. Um, where your characters would have like a quest that they would go on, usually to to slay an evil wizard or some such. They were kind of here in the UK, kind of an introduction to role-playing games. Um, and both myself and Stuart and an entire generation of kids in the UK grew up with them. So we would pick, I think we picked about 12. It was either 10 or 12 of them that we wanted to kind of play through and just kind of reminisce about. It was super fun to go back to them. And I found a lot of them were, you know, were better than I remember, and thoroughly enjoyed. Um,
You can tell that you guys had fun doing it.
we had a
Um,
lot of fun,
a
yeah.
few months ago when we first started talking, and I saw that, I was like, this is fun. This is cool. I'm gonna bring it up. I gotta bring it up.
It was cool, yeah. It was literally just two of us nerding out about some of our favorite game books. So if you've ever played them, definitely check out the podcast on Firetop Mountain because
Yeah,
we had fun making it. I don't know if we'll ever get the chance to do any more of them. So the episodes that we have are still out there
they are.
for you to check out if it is a medium that you're interested in. If not, if you've not had the chance to have a look for them, I know that there is a Kickstarter going on at the moment to publish the books again in America,
Oh, okay.
which means that within the next few years, months, whenever, you will be able to pick them up and give them a shot yourselves. Were written by Steve Jackson. That's our Steve Jackson, not the American Steve
Not the
Jackson.
American Steve
Uh,
Jackson. Very clear. We've had
Just
the American one on here. I gotta
just to
get him on
confuse
too.
folks. Yeah, get the British the English Steve Jackson. And if you can get Ian Livingston as well, he was the other co-creator. Good luck because he is like now Sir Ian Livingston, and I'm fairly sure he's an ambassador to for technology as well. Um, so he's someone I imagine is extremely busy, but yeah, he is has done extremely well for himself. And apparently, at some point after creating the fighting fantasy books, they went on to make some company that does something about a workshop that makes games. I don't know who
Yeah,
they might be.
like maybe like a games workshop sort of thing.
Yeah, that kind of
Maybe
thing.
something
No
along
idea who
those
they are.
lines.
Yeah, they make like some kind of games about hammers, I think.
Oh
I've
yeah,
no idea.
Hammers and War, right? Hammers and War.
Something
Yeah,
like that, I
something along
guess.
those lines.
Yeah, so those are the chaps that invented such a thing. So um yeah,
Oh,
what can
all
you
right.
say?
Before we before we before we bring this thing, wind this thing down, I want you to tell us about May I Enter. It's something new you've been working on, right?
I have in fact, yes. Me and Josh Thies have been working on a Powered by the Apocalypse game, which we're hoping people will enjoy. It is a vampire game. You play as vampires. It is called May I Enter. Um, we have just recently finished writing it, and it's going through beta testing now, due to hit crowdfunding later this year. May I Enter posits the idea that In lore and in mythology, vampires have to ask your permission to enter the house.
Yes.
What if they have to answer your permission to do other things, ask for permission to do other things as well? May I transform into mist? May I crush this brick with my bare hands? May I resist sunlight? That kind of thing.
Okay.
Um, it's a game in which your character's vampiric powers are innately connected to a relationship that you have with the mortals around you.
Okay.
So it incorporates a power system that is connected to relationship. The stronger the relationship you have with your person who you have a relationship with, well, redundant statement. The stronger that relationship is, the more powerful you are and the more supernatural abilities you can wield. You take those abilities and you can either well, you can do whatever you want with them. You have vampiric powers. You can consider whether you want to abuse those powers or you want to build trust with the mortals around you. You can explore your vampire's past, draw strength on memories, venture into chambers and ancient ruins from a primordial vampiric race that existed before humanity. Delve deep into the earth to unearth the vampires that still slumber deep within. All kind of wonderful and terrible things. So strong emphasis on relationship building, working with NPCs, supernatural abilities. We've got 5 or 6 different playbooks. With I believe we're looking at adding a few extra ones as well if the Kickstarter goes well. It's
Okay.
kind of like a stretch goal kind of a thing. Um, and as I kind of alluded to, we have a bit of a history that we mapped out where the vampires were ancient primal beings from before the dawn of humanity itself.
Okay.
So that's something that your character might get to explore and uncover, possibly, if they are strong and capable enough.
And as long as you give
Um,
them permission.
as long as you give them permission,
I
as
can
long
see it
as
also turning into something kind of comical as well if people
oh
really
yeah.
wanted to go that route. There's a couple TV series out there with vampires that are a bit comical that I could totally see swinging some of that comedy in there as
Yeah.
well.
I mean, it's something that we worked on because we both like vampire stories and incorporate like I had to restrain myself from writing too many references to Forever Night into the rule book.
Okay.
I was just typing away and going, can I include another reference to Forever Night? No one's gonna remember it.
Or maybe they
Oh,
will. Now that
just
you've
one
said it,
more.
they're gonna go looking for it. They're gonna go looking
Just one
for
more. Yeah.
it. Do you have any upcoming events that you have? Any conventions or anything like that that you know of, or maybe might be a part of?
I'm hoping to make Dragon Meet this year, if not UK Games Expo, but I'm not 100% sure at this stage.
Okay.
It's going to depend on like work hours this year. It's kind of up in the air because I've got house moving and mortgages to deal with
Yeah.
and all kind of things. So we will see
Life.
how that goes.
All right. Well, people can keep their eyes open and see if you end up making it to those events.
Yep.
People can find you at your website, cybeswebsite.com, correct?
hmm Yeah, that's the
Uh,
one.
Patreon.com/Alison Cybe.
hmm
And they can find you also on Blue Sky and Facebook, both at Alison Cybe.
Yep.
Am I correct on all those? Did I miss any? Did I get them all?
You got them.
Nailed it. Nailed it. Thank you so much for being here, guys. If you are in the chat, please stick around. We're going to get to some of your Q&A questions in just a little bit. But first, next time on Epic Realms, we'll be joined by Epic Realms alumni James Sutter. He used to run the entire Pathfinder Tales line of books, as well as a novelist and writer himself. With his new books, Dark Hearts and the Ghost of Us, will be we will catch up with him when he heads up and joins us down the road. It's going to be a lot of fun. We had a great time last time, so we'll definitely have a good time coming up as well. Also coming down the line, legendary comic book writer Jim Zub, iconic author and video game writer Bruce Nesmith, Trevor Bettis, and so many more. So please rate, review, like, subscribe, push all of those buttons. It means the world to us. So do that. It helps us and in turn helps our guests. So for Alison Cybe, I am Nick, and I thank you all for listening to Epic Realms.